Alisa Gracheva. What an honor to talk to Alisa. I really, really enjoyed it. Trauma. She's endured some trauma in her life. She came to this country when she was 18 years old. She talks about it. There was trauma with her family. She has an experience where she was able to, through ayahuasca, where she was able to see visions of her previously and some trauma that came from that. She helps people with trauma now, walking through it. She has, the 3 stages of awareness, willingness, and of course, readiness. But she's so much more than that. She's so much more than that. It's a great conversation. It went by in a moment, but we open up with vibrations. What are they? How do they exist? Do we know what's happening? Move to energy, to spirituality. Just a wonderful conversation about trauma and healing and recognizing it and trying to help people with it is what she does professionally. But she opens up in a way that is absolutely incredible and honest and vulnerable, but just a wonderful person. Alisa is, and it was a great pleasure talking to her, and I really thank her for it, and I thank you for watching and listen. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. To Alisa Gracheva, thank you for your time. What is vibration?
Well, vibration is in our every cell. That's what we sense, but we don't necessarily see it with our eyes. So it's more spiritual, energetic in nature. Just like every cell within our body vibrates, right? If we look at, again, every single organ that we have, we're all made of that. And if one part goes off, the vibration becomes incoherent. So we're not able to radiate this from a higher space, I would say, from a higher power. So vibration, we all have it. It's a universal thing. Everything is vibration around us.
Everything.
Yes, absolutely.
The computer.
Yes, it's a different type of vibration, but yes, naturally. So there's a lot of different ways in how I think people look at spirituality, vibration, energy, and all of that. Now we actually thankfully know that science proved us that vibration is in everything. But vibration is something that we feel drawn to or we feel repelled by, depending what kind of information is coming our way. That's not really sensory in a natural way, but sensory in that energetic way.
And what kind of control do I have, Alisa, with my vibration?
Oh, well, you probably will answer that question better because if we are coherent, if we are in our space, we are in the flow, right? Because again, we have very different types of, even brain waves have different vibrations, right? We can go into delta, theta, alpha, beta, and a lot of times we're functioning in a high beta, which is a survival state, and people can sense that. I don't know if you ever had a friend or a relative who is anxious or nervous and you begin to feel that way as well. Vibration is contagious. And so, or from the scriptures too, if Mother Teresa used to walk into a room, people without even seeing her there, they would begin to feel differently. They would begin to feel more uplifted, better. They don't want to fight anymore because lower energies technically cannot be within, if they're presented with a higher vibration, they're not going to make it. Just like the darkness cannot be in the presence of the light, right? But we're not trying to notify others about, well, now darkness, be careful, I'm about to turn on the light. No, if we turn on the light, everything dissipates, anything but the light. And so if we learn to set ourselves in this kind of, or program ourselves in a way that we're always aligned, and everybody will have different ways, because our mind is a major obstacle to that, unfortunately, because we're constantly overstimulated. influenced easily by things that are happening outside. We take things personally, and then obviously we begin to change how we think, how we feel, and that also resonates with how we are coming to the world, how we're showing up with the world, with our vibration, with our energy.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what's happened, and it's happened all my life, but I've noticed it within the last year or so. I'll be in a busy place, an airport, and I don't know what happens, but I just kind of look over and somebody is staring at me. Something told me and they look away. And sometimes I'm in the opposite. Sometimes I'll just arbitrarily just kind of fix my eyes on somebody and they'll turn and look at me. I didn't do it instinctively, but perhaps I did. But just something said, "Look over." Our eyes meet, and then they break. Is that all vibration?
absolutely. Is the intention, the vibration. Again, sometimes people are, if they're sending you a message, let's say, whether they're admiring something on you or they're judging, or maybe you reminded them of someone, you can catch that kind of, just like a
Mm,
radio station, Wi-Fi. It's a great option, right? We don't see it, but yet it exists because our gadgets are able to function within that range. It starts
wow.
to pick up that Wi-Fi. So yeah, our energy is similar to Wi-Fi. It's not something we can see, but it's definitely, it can be sensed if we're attuned to that. Unfortunately, again, when we're caught up with our things, like you've said, you can turn automatically. You don't necessarily aware, you're not aware of what's going
Right.
on, but you're sensing that. And because you're in your own thoughts, if we're more present, like monks, right? They know it
Mm,
very well. They can sense that, they can navigate that, you can set protection for yourself, whatever that is. We are often so distracted by everything that's happening in our lives, in the world, especially right now. There's a lot of things that people take so personally when it's not really about our lives, but it's about, society, culture, country, other countries, whatever's going on. And that can interfere with how in tune we are with what's happening on an energetic level. And oftentimes we can also ignore things that we begin to notice, right? You can call it intuition, you can call it instinct, but we can't deny that it exists. Just like animals have those instincts, right,
mm,
that they live by. I don't want to say we're all, I don't know, instinct, we have it, but I think intuition is deeper in nature.
mm.
So we can make more, we're not just instinctually or impulsively doing something, we begin to recognize what's going on and navigate that more softly. Yeah.
I tend to think, and I certainly could be wrong on this. I'm wrong on many things, Lisa, but instinct you're kind of born with, where intuition is more of your gut.
It's a good question. Again, if I would have a solid answer for that, I would probably
Mm,
say, but I know that intuition, we are born with that too. I think they go hand in hand. But I
interesting.
think in my way, in my personal way of understanding that, I think intuition can come more from receiving messages from your higher self, from,
Mm,
whatever we believe in. Everybody has different types of energy or spirituality or whatever we want to call it. But everybody can find a way to connect with that in their own kind of unique approach, in their own unique way. It just takes time because we don't normally dedicate time to that. We
mm,
dedicate time to something that, I look at myself in the mirror, something material, I'm like, okay, I need to go to the gym. But I'm not going to the gym once and they say, okay, I have a killer body until the rest of my life. It doesn't work like that, right? We go and we rehearse that, we practice regularly. The same happens for intuition. A lot of times we question ourselves and then we end up, I don't know if you ever had this experience when you sense something, you're like, no, that's not a good idea. And they're like, you know
mm.
what, let me give it a shot. You're giving it a shot and that was a very bad idea. And they're like, damn it, I should have listened to myself.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we all are prone to making those mistakes without trusting ourselves. So if we learn to sit with ourselves, to learn what's going on energetically, questioning it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think if we just go with what comes out naturally, especially, let's say, if people don't have, let's say, generalized anxiety, right? And they suddenly feel really uncomfortable next to someone,
Mm,
trust it. There is no need to try to prove yourself otherwise, to verify what's going on, what for. Give yourself that break, maybe reassessing, maybe seeing that person again or the situation, and then seeing how you're interacting with it this time around. And a lot of times you may get the same kind of feel. Maybe we should listen. At least in my life, this year was very, very rough. And I understood how important it is to listen to our intuition. And I
mm,
definitely did not. I was trying to justify the opposite, explain it in a way that, it's life or I'm feeling this way. Trust it. So for me, definitely, it was great lessons this year that were very painful, but again, they brought me to gain a lesson out of it rather than become a victim of the circumstance and say, well, everything is bad, poor me. No, we can learn, okay, I know what I've done, what I've ignored. I learned what were the way, or what was the way for me to go differently about what was happening. Okay, next time I will definitely listen to myself. I will go a different route if I sense something similar. That's how we learn. Unfortunately, sometimes we need to put that hand on the stove to make sure that I will never touch it again. And when people are telling you don't do it, you're like, well, I don't know. And then you get into the situation. But I think that's the best learning that we can experience. It's just sitting with yourself and dedicating time is I can't even emphasize how important that is.
So these bad experiences or experience you had this year, Alyssa, were they because not because, but you just didn't trust your gut? You questioned your gut?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Hmm.
correct. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not even, I can't say, I would say gut is maybe more about anxiety and instincts,
Mm.
but the higher, for me, again, the intuitive kind of insights that I was receiving that I wasn't listening, they were very subtle. And that's the
Hmm.
thing, because again, spirituality is subtle in nature. There is not something that we can guarantee that this is how it is. And again, faith is usually tested through the hard times. I can have beautiful life, everything is fine. Thank you, God.
Mm.
But when nothing is going right, we start to judge what's going on, our guides, our protectors, ourselves, and we lose the touch with reality that everything is happening for our highest good. And even those mistakes, in a way, right, that we consider that are very harmful to us, right? Some mistakes can cost us a lot in energetic and emotional and physical and even financial ways, but it's there for a reason, so that the next time we will know better and we can learn from that. So I'm a firm believer that everything that's happening is happening for our highest good, even though we may not sense it at the moment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Alyssa, I heard you say, and I really want to dive into this, where you said that you were able to find out past life experience. And because of that, there's certain things that you take on now. Please tell me about that journey.
Oh, yeah. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
So, yeah, I've been on a journey with self healing since 2000 deeply. I mean, it's been my whole life journey, I would say, because I've had a lot of very rough situations and experiences that took place. But the past life that I've had was, it was actually my birthday. I was turning 28. And from a few years back, I started being on this journey with the medicine called ayahuasca. It's a sacrament from South America. Very powerful, very beautiful. Not for everybody, for sure not. And I know a lot of people want to try it if you feel the calling, for sure, but you need to learn about contraindications and what's appropriate and what's not. Because again, there's no such medicine that will be good for everybody. It doesn't exist. So even medicine for the soul, so to say, can be a little harsh. So my it was a very difficult journey. And actually, my mom was with me there too. My mom did ayahuasca with me as well. And
Wow.
she was present. And we're very close with her. We have one soul for two people, so to say. We
Hmm.
always call it that because she always senses what's going on with me, even though she lives on another continent. The
Wow.
same as for me. I always sense if something is off, but I don't have anything in my life that can be wrong. I'm calling and she's either sick or she's going something emotional.
Wow.
And it was very powerful to have both of us in one room. So again, it's very connected. She's my portal to this
Hmm.
life. And I'm not the person who will say, I know there's a lot of different people, right? And a lot of people maybe more sensitive, maybe not, but I'm not one of those people who say, oh, like rainbows and butterflies and unicorns everywhere. If I have a vision, I will first question the validity of it, because if I can explain it in a way that, if I'm noticing something around me, I'm like, okay, can it be created by, AC or a wind or something like that? I'm always questioning. And if I find it was because of that. That was not something that was actually a vision or things of that nature.
Hmm.
I disregard it in that way. So I only had, I would say, throughout my lifetime, deep visions. I would say about 5 or 6 all total, where I
Wow.
can't explain what is this, and I can't explain. There is no way for me to make sense of it. But then I make sense of that vision based on the life history as well. So when I was thrown back, it was a very brief moment, and it was a very interesting experience. I end up being, I don't know the time frame, but it's the West for sure. It was Western culture. It was something like a pub where women wore corsets and the ripped fishnets, kind of like cabaret type, but old style. And I'm standing there. It was very interesting because I am me internally, but I'm not a woman. I'm a man. And I know I'm
Hmm.
a man. And I know I'm a very wealthy man and very intense emotionally, maybe impulsive, in that way. So I'm sensing myself. I don't even know how I looked. I know I was about 40s, I would say. But I'm looking at this women. There's a bar on one side, and I'm looking at this women who are standing. And I think they either refused to communicate with me or even something deeper, right? Intimacy level. And they were standing like giving me a challenge, like, what are you going to do now? Right? Type of thing. And I was pissed internally. And it's so weird that I actually feel myself, but I know I'm not Alisa, right? I'm not this human right now. I know I was a man. And I was really pissed. And I'm looking at the bar and I just scanned the bar. I'm like, okay, it's clean. I'll take it. I decided to buy a bar because I was that rich, filthy, filthy rich. And I'm throwing back into my body and I'm in the middle of this process. I'm like, what happened? What was this? So let me give you the prehistory of this whole experience. When I was born, my mom took me and my brother to the medium. And she brought me, I was a baby. I was a little baby. And they looked at my brother and they said, well, he came with a clear karma. And when they look at me, they're like, oh, she will need to work her karma out because she came with a karma. And
Hmm.
she will need to work with her I want, her desires. Right? Okay. My father was never on the picture in the full capacity back in the day. He passed on now and actually have much better connection with him now since he's passed on. But he was a very weird man. He wasn't present for me. So I never had a father figure, a man who can show me what the man should be like. Because I don't think as a man in my previous lifetime, I was actually treating women well and I was treating people well clearly from that little vision that I got. And again, everything makes sense with I want, right? Because anything I wanted, I would buy. In which way I made money, I have no idea. Not probably the best way, not probably the honest way. That's how I can sense it now since some other kind of experiences unfolded. So my father wasn't present, so I didn't have the role model for me. With men, I've been sexually abused. I've been actually raped with the first person that I've been together with, and that was already here when I moved to the United States, right? Then my cycles, my hormones are out of whack since I was a teenager too. It's like for me, how I understood this karma is understanding in which way I was mistreating other women when I was back in that lifetime. And so unfortunately, I had to go through similar experiences
Oh.
to understand what I was doing to others. And after I've made this connection, I overlooked or I processed my relationship with my dad, even with those who abused me in the past, because it was meant to be in the way for me to learn, unfortunately. And I know it can be, again, people can have different opinions on that, but I know, and there's a knowledge and there's a knowing, right? And when you know, you cannot unknow it. But with the knowledge, that can be tricky because you have to prove the point, you have to explain it. I had the knowing, and it made sense for me through, again, I was a little baby when I was told I had that karma. And that ended up exactly in this way. Everything led me to experience some of the worst things women can go through in order to understand how I was harming others. So that was my sense of that for my lifetime here.
And that vision, Alyssa, was that under the influence of ayahuasca?
Yes, it was during the ceremony, and I've never had thrown back in lifetimes. It was very weird because when I came back, and it was a very brief because I didn't interact with anybody. It was a very short kind of experience, but there was no way my brain would come up with something like this. It's just I've had different types of visions. That was never a point for me to experience and be in another lifetime, and that was very powerful. And again, I've tried to look in different ways, and that was exactly on my birthday. And I was like, okay, they gave me a gift. I got
Wow.
this gift of feeling that and seeing that. So,
So
yeah.
when you get this vision, do you say my life is going to change forever, or do you just kind of let it soak in and days pass by? What happens right after that vision with you?
Oh, I have to remember because my healing journey has been for a very long time, and there's
Yeah.
always some new things that continue to unfold with anything pertaining to, let's say, medicines, right? Medicine work. When we're talking about ayahuasca, when we talk about other stuff, the most important part is the integration because you can have a vision, you can have an insight, you have a knowing, you can have very profound. There's a difference between feeling better or being healed. And so
Hmm.
sometimes I've had moments when I definitely feel healed. And that was the most terrifying moments of my life where I wasn't sure if I'm going to make it through. And this one was just took me time to put together pieces of the puzzle because, again, that's, I think, how life works. We always want to find a reason for something right now. Like, why am I abused? Why this happened to me? Why, I didn't deserve that? Why God is doing that to me? God is not doing anything. He's just being in everything. We have to learn our lessons through going through and navigating our own mistakes, struggles, things of that nature, and making sense of it, not being a victim, but learning, okay, how can I make sense of it, integrate it into my life, and get the best out of it? And so, with that knowing, that becomes a change. Sometimes it's rapid. I've had moments when I got up after my very first time when I went for the medicine, and it was 3 nights back to back. It was from Friday night to Sunday. It was terrifying. It was terribly beautiful, how they said it.
Wow.
But it was an awful experience altogether. I wanted to leave after the first one. And I stayed, and every single ceremony taught me something profoundly different. And after the last one, I still call it till today, I call it exorcism. It was almost like not human voices coming out of me because the trauma was being released. And that was a very, very difficult process. I
Wow.
couldn't purge because you have to purge. I wanted them to call 911, but they sat with me. And after when all of it was done, I sat back. I'm like, what was it? What happened? How was it even possible? It was absolutely profound experience. And after that moment, I had this dissociation. I was even looking at some of my pictures, and I was like, I couldn't recognize myself because a lot of things before that moment, art was a big part of my life, and I did artistic photography. I was creating different characters. I really loved that. They were all a little scary in nature or intense, right? So I would always have this different, again, I wouldn't say entities is not the right word, but creative kind of characters that were not based on, I can't say beauty because it was beautiful in its own way, but it was still very intense. So when people would look at it like, wow, this is beautiful, but it's a little, I wouldn't say creepy, but sometimes it's again intense. And even some photographers working on the pictures are like, wow, the energy is very, because that's how my trauma would be coming out. Anytime I would have
Wow.
a panic attack from my PTSD, I would have in my head, my brain learned to cope with it, and I would have a character so that I can put that outside of me and process this panic attack in a way that will be
Hmm.
creative and useful. And so that was my coping skills to deal with that. And so taking pictures and doing this beautiful weird characters was something I actually had a lot of times my eyes would be covered with something, right? Because it was not me. Eyes are the windows to the soul,
Hmm.
and those characters were just something that was coming out with pain that I dealt with.
And had your mother also been doing doing the ayahuasca as well when you were there with
She's
her?
done, yes, yes, she did. She did 4 times, but she's always thrown to some. She was Now she stopped, but it's been quite some time. But she did 4 times, and a few of them she was thrown onto this planet that everything was mechanical, but everything was alive. And
Huh.
so nobody, even our my teacher who was guiding the ceremony too, she was not able to explain that. She was like, "That's very interesting. I never heard that before." But she ended up there. I don't know, maybe she's an alien. I'm not going to be surprised. This woman is very special. She had near death experience in her life, and she's seen she's met some guides of her, and it was a very powerful experience. So yeah.
So I want to get back to this vision. So after you have the vision, I mean,
Mhm.
you're going home, you're returning to normal life. I mean, does everything in your life now change?
It doesn't change. Sometimes changes happen fast, sometimes they happen over time. I think
Right.
one of the most important things is to connect the dots and begin to understand why you're given a certain thing and what's the connection to other life experiences. Because I'm a deep supporter of people who learn from trauma rather than becoming a victim of it. And trust me, I've been in a victim state. I just going to be honest, because after what happened, the first things I would tell to people is how I was abused. That was years ago, but that was true because again, it was hurting, and people talk about what hurts. Whatever we're dealing with, whatever we're preoccupied with, that's what's going to come out. And it took me years to begin to work on this differently. It started with my mind though first, and then I began to transition by changing thoughts because our mind is a big obstacle. And if we believe everything we think, we're going to drive ourselves nuts because everything we think based on core beliefs that are learned from childhood traumas, from adulthood traumas. We're learning about life, about ourselves, about the world, about other people through those experiences. Unfortunately, a lot of us, when we go, come on, let's face it, everybody will have experiences super distressing, and that will probably create some aftermath in the form of trauma, whether it's deep trauma as we identify, like witnessing death or being, near death as well. Trauma can be not not being taken care of the right way when you're growing up. And so sometimes we walk, and the moment we have that belief, we begin to view the world through the lens of that belief as well. So if I feel like the world is unsafe because I had an abusive childhood, I'm going everywhere and I'm looking through that lens. I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to participate in there. I'm not going to make connections with these people because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel safe. Our beliefs affect everything. So the first thing for me was to work on that, right? And when we're able to work on that, we're given, we don't follow again that intuition piece, right? We're
Mm.
being guided. But if we insist on what I believe in is true and it's a fact for me now, I can go sideways or sidetrack from where I need to follow. We usually come back to it. Sometimes it takes a long time for some people, sometimes not. But the mind is the first thing we have to question. And the first time when I question my beliefs, I ask the question, okay, what if everything I believe in is not true? And suddenly, instead of the box I was functioning from, I have an open field of opportunity. So, what to believe in? We just have to understand that our beliefs may not necessarily be true, even though they feel true. And so removing the mind, because the mind is the biggest problem even for the ceremonies like that, because you're trying to control the experience. But if you're trying to control, that's a very human trait, but it's not serving you well in ceremonies because it's going to create obstacles for you to surrender. And surrendering is what's needed in any type of work. Even when you're just every single night I'm on my knees, I'm praying, and if I'm feeling something, I'm surrendering that too. Say, okay, I accept it. I'm not trying to resist it, because what we resist persists. And I just give it all to the source, and I say, okay, this is all here. I'm here. I'm surrendering into this feeling. That's what I'm feeling. But guess what? The moment we do that, the feeling begins to dissipate.
Hmm. Listen, had you not had that vision and that experience, how do you think your life would be now?
I don't know if it would be much different, because I was processing a lot with my father was a big part of it. And it actually, the whole processing with that relationship happened just this year.
Hmm.
And I was able to finally reconnect, because I haven't felt him energetically at all. And I had a beautiful, I wouldn't say it's incident, but beautiful situation or beautiful event that took place where I felt him and I was finally connecting. It was such a catharsis for me to free that energy up and to finally process that, even though I was working on that relationship for my whole life, because I always
Mm.
had resentment towards him. And now I understood that there's this book that's called Sacred Contract by Carolyn Miss, and she explains about how we, before we were born, and again, everybody has their own way of how life was created, how we're going through different lessons, what is karma, what is spirituality. But it made sense with philosophy that I have about life. And what you mentioned was that before we were born, we make contracts with certain souls, with other souls. Not all of them are about good times, because sometimes the most loving souls have to teach us a big lesson in the form of a pain. And they're under contract too, because I needed to grow and learn. And so they cannot be in any other way, even though I may needed a father when I was growing up. Because of what he needed to teach me, he was not able to give me what I needed, because he was under that contract, so to say.
Mm.
And so for me, it made all the sense. I released a lot of resentment towards a lot of people in my life, any abusers, any unpleasant people, anybody who ever harmed me. But it's a very liberating experience, because resentment is affecting us.
Mm.
Like Wayne Dyer says, it's my great teacher. I've learned so much from him. He says, once you're bitten by a snake, you can be unbitten.
Hmm.
Once you're bitten, but you're not running after the snake, trying to say, why do you poison me? You're trying to attend to the poison inside of yourself. That's how we're getting healed,
Mm.
not going after the snake and putting blame on her. The snake did what she wanted to do, he, whatever. But we need to attend to ourselves and what is left behind, what is left inside. And that resentment is not serving us well. But people are entitled to their opinions about themselves, others, and what do they want to do with that poison, because it's their poison to carry with them, or to treat it and let it go.
Mm. How important you describe this? I'm assuming you reached some kind of closure with your father with this experience you've had and everything. How important is closure when dealing with trauma?
Oh, absolutely. Because you're not a victim anymore. You begin to see
Mm.
yourself in a way of, I'm going to grow through that. This experience is for me to evolve. But I also remember this quote that gave me a lot of peace, especially when it comes to having people in your life that may not be the best and you want them to do better, but they're not. And there's a quote that goes, not everybody came to this earth to evolve. Some people are here to show you what's going to happen if you don't. And
Hmm.
so everybody has a different way of life, and they may learn this lifetime or they may not. And that's okay. And sometimes we get stuck again. I've been stuck for a while. I've been a victim myself, but I chose to do something else, because once you're that victim, it's never going to change. Well, when I say, okay, I want to do something about it. And I always talk about 3 stages. It's first is awareness. You become aware and you say, okay, all right, let me look at it carefully, because awareness, sometimes we do things and we don't even question them because we think it's normal. When we do something as a habit, right? Habits can be very dangerous or they can be very helpful in growing and developing. And so awareness, number one, what do I have in me that I no longer need? Or is this helping me, healing me, or killing me? Once I'm aware, when I know better, I got to do better. If I don't do better, I will always have that scratch, that itch. I will say, well, I shouldn't be doing that. And I know it's not good for me, but I keep doing that. And okay, you can get stuck on that stage for some time, right? Not doing better when you know better. The second one is willingness. What do you want to do about it? What's the next step? Do you want to continue with that, or you want to make a decision that, you know what, I want to do something about it? It's just that, just I want. And then say, okay, I'm willing to do that. And that can be, again, that can be weeks, months, years. Everybody has different time frame. And the third one is readiness. When I say, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to be restructuring of my life, my habits, my mental state, but I'm ready to go for that. And then it's going to get very uncomfortable. But if we are looking at the end point, when I say I'm going to keep that vision in mind of what I'm going to gain, who I'm going to come out as by the end of this journey. And if I keep that very close to heart and I always keep that in mind, I say, okay, I know it's here for a reason. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's not going to last long, because nothing lasts if we don't, you know, if we have a scar, if we have a wound, and instead of sanitizing that wound, I'm constantly digging and saying, but why is it here? Why did I get hurt? It's never going to heal.
Hmm.
But if I patch it up, it's painful. There's a pain and there is suffering. We have to deal with pain sometimes, say, well, that happened. Okay, what am I doing about it? Suffering will be, why me? Why now? Why in
Hmm.
this way? But we don't need, suffering is a choice. And pain is inevitable because we're going to get hurt a lot in our life. And thinking that, okay, I figured it out, I'm good now. No, it's going to be many more skills we have to learn, many more situations that will allow us to learn those skills if we keep our mind on a price, so to say. If I know, okay, it's unrealistic to say I'm never going to have pain again. I will, a lot. But what am I going to do about it? How much stronger I'm becoming going through every single step of that process and healing that pain.
Awareness, willingness, readiness. 3 stages. Does everybody? I mean, I know there's been studies of trauma that it's actually passed through generations, right? The parents had it, and there's studies that they did with mice, and this is scientifically proven. Does everybody have trauma to deal with?
I think we get it through our lifetime if it's not transgenerational, which probably there are still parts of it, but it all depends on the individual and how we address it, how we move forward with that. And again, acknowledging that there can be something underneath that.
Mm,
My grandparents, they went through the Second World War, and my
yeah.
grandmother was in Leningrad blockade when they barricaded St. Petersburg. Now it's St. Petersburg. Back in the day, it was Leningrad. She was 12, her sister was 6, and their parents were dead from hunger because there was no food at all. And the coffins with them were in the next room because they couldn't bury them for a while, actually. So it was an awful, awful situation. They were they couldn't eat. There was no dogs or cats or birds inside the city because everyone was eaten. All the animals were just, they needed them as food. Sometimes they boiled water on the leather belts as well to give it some flavor. It was awful situation. So of course she was affected by that, and of course it would be coming out in different, people. My mom always says that my grandmother was telling my mom that her blockade came out
Mm,
through my mom.
mm,
So my mom always had chronic fatigue, which she's dealing with now, and she's much older. So it's a real deal and it's a real thing. But what do we look at that as an example and say, okay, if they overcame something like that, we can definitely overcome what we're dealing with here, even though it may feel really hard.
mm.
So I think it can serve as a reminder of what I wouldn't say real trauma, but what really intense trauma can be like. And knowing that, of course, I have to deal with some residue of that in one way or another, because we're made of the same blood, we're all the same lineage. So yeah, I think everybody will have one way of a trauma or another. Even again, any negative belief. I really love how in the Myth of Normal, Gabor Mate, he talks about again his own trauma and how he got it from his mother as well. And he explains that anything, it's not about how we looked at it before, when it has to be life threatening kind of situation, you're going through something, you're witnessing someone's death, but anything that impacts your functioning. If you're not able to build connections because you don't feel like you're lovable, you're not good enough, that will still be an effect of some form of trauma. It's still something that you don't, if you don't believe that you're lovable, isn't that a trauma? And I
Mm.
have some people who also, they would, if I give them an example, okay, imagine the same situation, your child is coming and telling you, or your best friend is telling you. Would you tell them the same thing you're telling yourself, or would it be different? They're
Hmm.
like, of course, different. I would never tell them what I'm saying to myself. How is that logical? But because we all do it, because we don't believe we deserve something, and the people that we truly love, when we have that love towards another, we would never do the same thing or say the same thing
Mm.
like we do to
Mm.
ourselves. So it's a very tricky thing. And so even I think the lack of self-love is a trauma in itself.
Lack of self-love. Can people I want to ask the question if people can deal with their own trauma, but there's so many different degrees and some don't know the length. When you help people with trauma, how do you go through this first stage of awareness and try to find out what the trauma is or how deep it is or if it's different trauma that led to that trauma? I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's
it's a process.
yeah.
Yeah, it's never an easy solution, and some people have a really difficult time. I've had some clients that I worked with medical injury, severe trauma, they're immobilized.
Mm.
So to bring up interventions and seeing life in a different way when you're constantly dealing with chronic pain, it's a very, very difficult journey. But if you're able to get even few steps ahead of where you were, you're winning.
Mm.
This is incredible, and that shows how strong you are to deal with that. But it's incredibly difficult, and some people do get in that space when it feels hopeless, and some people are not ready to change either, and that's another part of the experience, that you can't force change. I was asked once in another in a podcast as well, well, you're a healer, and I say I don't see myself as that. It's a
Mm.
collaboration. I don't take success or for I don't take credit for success nor failure when it comes to my clients, because they're doing that. The greatest reward for me is that I'm seeing and witnessing this transformation
Mm.
in my space, like I'm
Mm.
seeing them change next to me, and that's the greatest reward, because they proving to me the strength and the resilience of human soul. And this is incredible. But again, maybe it's not the time for some people, and maybe they need a little bit deeper or more willingness or being more ready for that change, because sometimes we need to go through a certain period to say, okay, now I've had enough. Now things are not changing since I'm in this space, so what else can I do? But it has to come from that person. I can't make anybody change. It's impossible.
Right.
Even if we go a little bit biblical in a way, when Jesus was healing people, right? And when somebody is asking him, "Can you heal me, Jesus?" He says, "Do you believe I can heal you? Then I can."
Hmm.
We are the strongest force in our life, and always will be. That's exactly why placebo effect exists. Right now, we have medical fields supporting this idea, because if you believe you can change and you can heal, there's a big chance you will.
Mm.
We have studies formed on this concept, on this phenomenon. So our belief will make it so. And if some people don't believe that there is anything for them, but they're trying to seek help without believing that, yeah, we can see what we can do, but it's going to be impossible for me to change their mind. Only if they open themselves up for that. I wasn't changing it until I asked myself, what if I believe what I believe in is not true? And then at that point, I began to see other things. But we have also this confirmation bias. It's
Mm.
another phenomenon in psychology, where we're going to find confirmation for what we believe in from the environment. So if I believe, let's say, that people are hostile and nobody can be trusted, even if someone looks at me, I'll be like, why are they staring at me? What do they want? Right? You're picking up because you're looking at through the lens of that belief. And you'll be reaffirming yourself. You're like, well, this is bad. People say, well, the world is awful right now. And then they're turning on TV, news. Yeah. They'll be like, you see, I told you so. Look what's going on. But in your life, all of that lives there in your life right now. Is it affecting your life directly in that way? I mean, of course, we get affected by the global situations, but it's not direct threat.
Mm,
We may have great friends and good jobs, and we still will feel like the life is dangerous and the world is dangerous. So we have to really challenge ourselves and open ourselves up to seeing, okay, I'm open to seeing other things. But if I'm not, nobody will, I'm not a magician, with a wand to do something. I can bring you facts, right? I can explain things that I've learned and that I know that, worked for others, worked for me. But if you don't believe in it, there's nothing I can do.
mm.
Placebo, right?
When someone has trauma, Alyssa, and they want help, what questions should they ask in somebody that can provide help in this area?
I would say it starts with, are you satisfied where you are?
Mm,
Is it how you want to live your life? Is everything working? Because some people are like, well, I live like this and that's it. Okay. But if you are looking for solutions, do you enjoy, if something is everything working right for you? And if
mm,
not, let's explore what can we do and how your past experiences can be impacting your next steps as well, or your current situation. So I think first is becoming very honest with ourselves and saying, okay, I don't like the way it goes. I don't like what I'm feeling. I want to have more friends. I want to change quality of my life. Maybe I want to, look at life differently. And one thing to acknowledge is that I know we may have beliefs and beliefs feel real. But if there is someone, if I look at a person like, wow, they're really amazing, how they operate, how they live their life, their values, so this is already exception to your own rule, that there are others who may feel or operate in a different way. So why not shop for alternative perspectives, so how people
mm,
view the world, what
mm,
beliefs they have, how did they get there? But it requires, again, the transformation doesn't happen in session or doesn't happen in ceremony. It's how we apply those principles. When you were actually asking me about the ceremony too, one of the things that I've noticed after you gain, because you gain a lot of insights when they say you're going into ceremony, it's like a 10 years of therapy. It is. It actually gives you a lot of different insights about yourself, and you cannot deny that this is the truth, right? So you get that and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But then you're coming back from this magical space where you were, and suddenly you're faced with the same triggers, with the same nasty people, with the same, I live in Florida, so the drivers are awful. A lot of people complain about that. Granted, right? But when I'm in the process where I feel triggered, we usually have this two ways. Number one is to go the old way and to say, I'm gonna get pissed off at them. I'm gonna honk and I'm gonna
mm,
call them names in my
mm,
car. Or I begin to notice, now I have better awareness. I say, okay, you know what? I actually know better. It's not the knowledge, it's the knowing. I know better. Let me take deep breath and let it go, because nothing that I do right now will harm them. It's going to harm me. If I
mm,
get pissed off, that poison is in me. I'm not going to be, if we're sane in our mind, right? We're not going to go and rear end them, or I'm not going to be doing things that can put me in danger. Most people won't, but we get pissed off and we feel like anger is not harming us, but it is, because we're going into the sympathetic dominance survival response when we get pissed off. We get cortisol, adrenaline, so flushing, we get so intense. And that's actually not very good for our system, for our health. So the moment we're aware, we're like, okay, let me practice another way of response to this. I will practice that, and I will keep myself calm. If I don't have the skills, okay, let me go and learn the skills, because I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to get pissed off right now. I may not be able to control it very well, but I will, and I know there are ways that I can do so. And that's how, if people are seeking help, and you have to be open. But if you're not open, it's not going to happen. So I think that awareness and exploration of, okay, I'm open to see that my beliefs may not be true, and that what's happening in my life, it's not a tragedy, it's freedom. I can get free from any experience if I want to. So again, are we walking alone in a human body? Maybe, but we do have certain people that support us too, and that's beautiful when we have those people. And we have our higher self too. And if we include faith in the process, believe that it doesn't matter who you pray to, it doesn't matter. As long as you get better from that and you feel peace and you find your way and you say, okay, thank you, whoever that is for them. Even if you just
mm.
believe in your higher self, that there is another part of you that's more present, that's more available, that's more, in tune with another world, not this this human world. It's a beautiful gift to oneself.
It certainly is. You integrate spirituality. I saw plant medicine, sound, energy, light therapy into your practice. How do you know which is going to work the best?
Well, for plant medicine, it's more integration for things, and I'm currently also a ketamine assisted psychotherapy.
Yes.
So I provide that too. It's also another psychedelic, also very powerful. Not for everybody, but it helps the brain to restructure. So I provide education, psychoeducation on many different things. Some clients that I know they love to meditate, and I have my crystal ball at work that I can use. I also used to do big classes. I love meditation and for people going in. And I actually did sound healing with meditation in rehabs in the past. And that was incredible results for people detoxing of substances. And they were able to fall asleep. Speaking of vibration, right? They
Hmm.
were able to fall asleep when they haven't slept in days. Because
Wow.
once you're using sound healing, everything vibrates, right? When something happens in our body, the vibration becomes incoherent. When we're using sound healing bowls, the sound bounces off the walls, especially if it's closed room, and penetrates the body because it goes in and out. And sometimes when we shift the vibration, the place that was incoherent, maybe it's lack of sleep, maybe anxiety, maybe pain in the shoulder or back, it can also shift. And I've heard from people, some people may not have the pains they had in the past. Some people would be snoring when they haven't slept in days during
Hmm.
the class, and I love it's extra sound for me to play with as well. So it's very powerful. That practice is very powerful, and I love it. But it's again, it's whoever feel more attuned to that, because some people don't believe in spirituality or they don't want to go that route, and that's fine too. There's everybody has their own way of how they want to be kind of treated. But spirituality is not just, again, religious. Spirituality doesn't have to be religious at all. And
Hmm.
looking at life, even looking at, are we trusting our heartbeat? Do you trust your next inhale? Do you even think about your breath? We take that, even though we can question, what if I'm not going to have my next breath right now? We trust this process, and there's also consciousness in our body that breathes our body, digests food. I'm taking a sip of water, I don't question, what if it's not going to go down, what if I'm not.
Right.
No, we trust it, and it's 100% trust. How do we know it's going to go down? If we think about it, I don't know. But we trust that intelligence when running. So let's expand it. If we trust that this intelligence created all of these processes and they're all working without me consciously doing it, why not to trust life a little more and
Hmm.
seeing that things unfold for my highest good, and they will lead me somewhere. I just have to be open to learn what I need to learn from this
Hmm.
experience.
Alyssa, how does science meet spirituality?
Oh, in many different ways. Again, starting with beliefs, right? Placebo effect, that's that belief. And when people question me, I say,
Hmm.
okay, I had someone telling me, well, I can't believe it until I see it. I'm like, well, how did the study show that you can heal yourself from just taking sugar pill? You're taking sugar pill, you think it's a medication, and suddenly you heal and you didn't do anything. They were actually very interesting. There are a few experiments that I've learned about. One was operating on the knees. There were surgeries that were going on, and they opened the knee up, but they didn't do anything. And they did the procedure for other people. I don't remember how many people were participating, but all the people began to heal, even those who didn't do anything. They didn't do anything too. They began to heal from that. There was another study where it was actually one person who came to do an MRI of the brain, and they did the MRI and they found a little thing in there, a little lump, and they said, "Oh, it's untreatable. We can't. You have about 2 or 3 months to live." The person passed away. I don't remember was it the same time or not. I don't remember specifics. But then they found another MRI 10 years before, and he still had that lump in there
Wow.
because they didn't look at it in that way. They didn't diagnose him. He lived. The moment he learned he's about to die, he passed away. So these miracles are everywhere, but we have to be open to see it in that way, because I can also say, well, it's just one time, it's just once, it's not real. Or I look at it and say, wow, this is something powerful. There's a book by Anita Murjani. It's called Dying to Be Me. And she actually, it's a real case. And she had cancer of like she was dead. And she came back to life after she's been out there in another type of dimension, and she came back and she began to heal at a rapid pace after she understood the lessons of that. and why she had that tumor in the first place. So these resources are everywhere, but again, we have this confirmation bias. If I don't believe in that, I'll find ways to disprove it, even though it's very hard to do with those type of stories. But
Mm.
and it's not my job to change or convince anybody else if they don't want to look into that. I'm not going to be wasting my energy if they're not
Right.
ready, right? And that
Right.
comes to that third stage. If you're not ready, there's unfortunately I'm not able to do it. I'm not a magician. Or having a quick fix too. Sometimes I
Mm.
practice EMDR, powerful, powerful technique. Very, it gives really good results. But people come and they wanted to do in the first session. That's not how it works. That's liability on me. And I want people
Mm.
to understand that there are steps to it. There are 8 phases to this process. And if you want just quick result because you don't want to do the work in the middle of all this, it's not going to work because you're not going to even accept and understand the changes that will be happening in your nervous system, in your neural connections. So yeah, I think people have to be open and ready for that.
Listen, if somebody's willing to do the work and deal with it, can trauma I don't wanna say be completed or removed or just or closure. I mean, can trauma be removed from one's life if they're willing to put in the work?
They can integrate it into their life and make the most
Integrate it.
out of it. Yeah.
Mm.
We can learn from that experience. And I have this saying that goes, trauma will always be a part of your history, but it doesn't have to be a part of your story, or at least not in a
Mm.
way that brings you down. But it's the opposite. If you had that, you overcame that, you've healed yourself through it. Maybe your calling is to help other people navigating the same thing, because I believe there's always a deeper meaning. It's going to be different for everybody. And sometimes people make these strides forward, and they it's so empowering to witness how they make sense of it, and they're like, you know what, I want to dedicate myself to this work, I want to do that, I want to help others in that way. And it's just beautiful. It's people aligning with their own mission. So my goal, I think, in therapy, how I view it, is to help people to become masters of themselves and to understand. Number one, I provide a lot of psychoeducation on that, so they will know how traumas are stored and created within yourself. So the next time when you experience next one, and
Hmm.
you will know what's going on and how to deal with it, how to work with that. It's not going to be taking you down. Because in the beginning, again, anything negative that happens to us, it's really impacting how we operate, how we are. But then, even similar things, a little bit different, it's still not going to take that much time to be stuck in that loop, right? We're going to be getting out like breakups, right? Initially, it can be really rough. The first breakups, we know how hard that is. We can
Mm.
lose hope and faith and everything. And then when we're down the line, decades later, we're like, well, it was not good for me anyway. Let me move on. Well, it may take a little bit of time, but it's not going to be as devastating, and it's not going to take me down because I already learned that there are more people that are better, probably will be better for me. And I'm open to waiting for the right person if this one doesn't. If something here, I've tried to make it work. I'm a big supporter of, putting our best. But if that's something that's really harming or it's not going your way, there's no need to keep, to cling to that too tightly. So with everything, we just become stronger and navigating life's challenges. And that's what I want to teach to people, that they can be the masters of their life. They can be their own best friend and navigating themselves and knowing that no matter what comes, I know I have the resources to tune into, or resources to afterwards open up and learn more tools. Because again, we all have this toolbox that we get different tools from. And
Mm.
we got to use them too in order for them to work, just like with driving or like working out, right? Any skill that we have requires repetition. We have to use it a lot for this to work. And if we just try it or learn about it theoretically, we're not putting it into action, into practice, we're not going to master that skill.
Hmm.
So it's a lot with discipline. And that's why, again, that stage for being ready, you have to know that you will have to do the work, and it's uncomfortable. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They want a chill pill. They want something that will give them immediate relief, but unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
Alyssa, sure, they have to go through a lot of work to get through it, but while you're working with them, you feel a bit of it too. I mean, why do this? Why help people with this? I know you've had it yourself, but it's a lot of hard work on your part too, right? To kind of help them navigate and go through this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any job will be hard. Number one, I think we have to find something that will give you the reward back. And that comes from that collaboration. Because again, I'm not just putting myself into the space where I have to do the work and entertain a person, trying to bring them different ways of looking at things. No, we have to work together. I'm a human too. I may say things that may be triggering or, uncomfortable to hear or whatever. I want people to tell me that too, because that's the honest communication that will take us further down the line. Because again, we're all humans. When I worked in rehabilitation clinics with substance use, a lot of times people don't want to change who are there. They get into the cycle, and that was very draining because you don't get that, collaboration work. You're constantly performing, but it's not giving you back anything. So you do feel drained. And right now, being more like already transitioning to trauma work, it becomes much easier. Not everybody's ready either, but they still are willing at least. And I can work with the willing, right? We can get to the ready stage in a little bit of time. Sometimes it's not always possible. Even, transfers may happen. I'm not for everybody as well. Some people maybe need someone who will ask less of a homework. I give a lot of homework. And if you don't want to do it, there's nothing for us to do together because it's not going to work. So I'm very honest about that. If you're not willing to do the work, the homework, I'm not your therapist. I'm not gonna be, just talking about things, validating you. I mean, validate. Of course, every feeling is valid. But how long are we gonna be in this stage? Or you're willing to really take something and try to implement that. I have some people who are saying, "Well, I've done it. I've tried it once. I didn't like it." Did you like it when the first time you went to the gym? I didn't like it when the first time I went to the gym. Really not. But if I want results, I have to do something and then see, because habits, when they're habitual already, they begin to bring some rewards in many different ways. And when you notice how much better you think or your emotions are, like meditation doesn't work for me. It works if you work it.
Yeah. It certainly does. Yes.
Yeah.
You have great social media, Alyssa, and you had two quotes that it's when I was learning about you, this kind of stuck with me. The first one, you want to know the difference between a master and a beginner. The master has failed more times than the beginner has ever tried.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Universal wisdom, right? We have to, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of failing too. And I, I don't like the word failure in general, but I never fail. I either win or learn, and I love that because it's always a learning process. I don't remember exactly the number, and honestly, I don't remember um, in what context it was said. But when the light bulb was being created, there were hundreds of the light bulbs that didn't work. And if the person will say after the 100th or 99th, it says, "You know what, I'm done with this," we would never have lights. But someone decided to go for that and do it again and again and again and again. And finally we have this beautiful, tool to live with, rather than having candles all the time and putting ourselves in danger of a fire. Now we have electricity that's just powerful, but it didn't come just because, oh, I think this will work. Oh, you see, it works. No, it never is like that. We have to, and everything that we see around is very powerful. Just like looking all around us, somebody created a plane. Every time I look at the plane, I'm like, this is a metal machine that doesn't flip its wings, and yet it's flying into the air across the
Thousands of
oceans.
tons. Yes. Heavy.
What? Try to say it to someone in 1800s or, earlier. They're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? That's never going to work.
It's a famous, I don't, who knows if it's true, but the copyright trademark department in the United States in 1899, the proprietor said he wanted to close it up because there's possibly can't be any more new inventions made. And that was in 1899. The second quote, if you see a woman that has everything going for herself and you are not ready to add value to her life, just admire her from afar. Please don't interrupt her greatness.
Yeah. Yes. Very accurate. And I think it's, I mean, for women a lot, but I think it's for a lot of people. I think we sometimes don't understand how we can be impacting another person. And the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to work on ourselves, period. And if we remain where we are, it's never going to be good, neither for us nor for other people. And yeah, that quote was, it was a rough beginning of the year for me in a romantic level. And so
Oh,
this year took me through a roller coaster. It was a rough year. Year of the snake, skinning us alive a little bit, shedding our skins, but in a rough way, I would say.
you're better
Yeah.
now?
I'm getting, yeah, I had another round of, I would say, misfortune that I will learn a lot from. It's just right now, it's the integrating that part and making sense of it. And unfortunately, I've been a victim of a fraud and financial. I've lost everything and plus more that I didn't have. So now I have to be paying for that for many years ahead. But it's not about money. If we're meant to lose something, let it be money, and making sense of that, because it was very, very, it was evil what people were, and it was very malicious. And it's been just recently, actually it ended a month ago and it was going on for a few months. It was big operation that unfortunately I ended up participating in. But I've had a lot of realizations, and I continue to learn more and more about myself, about my intuition too, because I've heard the, little red flags were coming up so many times, but I didn't pay attention to that, unfortunately. But it's all about what perspective do we start to apply to that, and how we look at the situation, and again, in what way can I learn from that. And so for me, it's always about that. And that's why my recovery, thankfully, thank God, begins to be pretty fast. It goes, yeah, I have my low days, but I'm still keep on going because I know
Mm.
I'm on a mission. I think having that purpose, having a mission is very important for us to know that no matter what, I'm still going, I'm still alive, and I have to keep going because there's going to be a blessing from that, if not in the way of, getting some back or having fortunate experiences. We change. I become more aware, maybe setting better boundaries, trusting your intuition more, right? And knowing that if somebody is harming you in a certain way, they're selling you the piece of their soul. So for every penny I've lost, they've lost a piece of their soul, because humans
Mm.
shouldn't be acting in that way. But it's not between me and them, it's between them and God, and it's between me and God.
Hmm.
So I'm walking my path, and I'm going to recover regardless, because I have God with me. They have, well, money. Okay. All right. I'll take God over any penny. So yeah.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
And yeah, it's a recovery. It's a process. And we just have to remember that it's going to be a process of change, but we're going to come out so much stronger on the other
Right.
side. Yeah.
Alyssa, has there been anything in the last month or so? It's kind of, this question may be obvious not hearing that, but that you've changed your mind on in recent history?
Yes. Oh my God. So many, and they keep coming. They keep
Huh.
coming. Yes, absolutely. Well, number one is, I wouldn't say boundaries is not really the right word, but I think it's important to never ignore when we get feelings in our body, sensations, feelings, when something doesn't feel right. Pay attention to that.
Mm.
There's probably something not right, especially if it's continuous experience, right? We're not supposed to be in a survival mode and be in this anxiety state all the time. There's definitely something going on, whether it's obvious or not, unless again we have certain conditions. But even then, there's still ways to work on this and to understand it better, to find the reasons. So definitely trust but verify. Giving certain amount of trust to others, I think it's necessary for us to be able to even be open to new connections, but always check it out with yourself, because when it comes to people, it can be very tricky, and unfortunately not everybody has the best intentions for you, whether it's intentional or not intentional. But I think giving it some time and verifying with yourself how you feel, and really scanning, because it's very easy for us to put the pink glasses on when something sounds great, but see if it's realistic. And again, through this experience too, trusting people that you do know and that maybe can give you sound advice, even though it's not what you want to hear at the moment. Sometimes taking that and scanning that, okay, I'm not saying taking someone's advice and just going blindly, but check in with yourself, do your
Mm.
research, right, about certain things. Make sure that you are informed about the next steps that you're taking, and paying attention to how you're feeling throughout this process. So again, trust with boundaries, being more in tune with how you feel, and knowing that sometimes our body picks up subconscious, right, or unconscious, whatever we want to call it, but it picks up information that we may not be consciously aware of. So just scanning with ourselves and seeing, okay, is there any message that I may be ignoring? Is there maybe something that I'm not yet aware of? Is there something else that may be why I feel this way? So yeah, these are so far some of the ways that I'm trying to navigate. And then another one is just keep going,
Mm.
because it may feel really, really low and you may feel awful. And I've had awful physiological response to all this experience. A month ago, I was collapsed on the floor, and I had my best friend and my other dear friend helping me out through that. And that support was everything, but also shows how people are available for you when you need them to. So there's so many lessons and pieces of that puzzle. And seeing my recovery rate, I'm in awe, not because it's not me doing it. I'm allowing this intelligence in me to heal me, because we are meant to heal. Our whole system is meant to recover, just like we recover from physical wounds. It's healing itself. We don't do anything. We trust this process. And the same for emotional stuff too. If we allow it, we take the steps, we sanitize that wound. Right? Sanitizing meaning the moment I may get a flashback or have this negative kind of thought about what's going on where I am right now because it's rough, I immediately reframe it. I say, okay, it's temporary. It's not going to last. I don't believe this thought because I can think about something else right now. And that moment, that flashback, that experience is nowhere in this reality right now. It's in the past. But because it lives in my head at this time, I believe that this is what happens to me now. And then I feel weakened because any negative thought, any bad thoughts, any things of the past that we get stuck with, they're weakening us right now.
Mm.
And even though it happened before and I right now I have no control over the past, nobody can influence my next step.
Hmm.
I'm not giving my power away anymore because the next step only depends on me. And if I allow that experience to impact my next step, I'm doing myself disservice. So I think there's so many, I think I will get many more. But I'm noticing that I'm definitely, if I, and right now there's a lot of scam, let's put it everywhere in general, right? People get very sophisticated in those ways. And if I'm sensing something, I immediately cut things off now. And so that's another skill that I've got now, and recognizing certain things, which before I wasn't. Now I have more wisdom about how to approach those situations and picking up the signs. So if we allow ourselves to really learn through that experience rather than feeling defeated, they can't defeat me.
Mm.
We have to move forward because my next step depends on me. And so yeah, there was a lot, it's a lot of changes happening and continue to unfold as I continue to heal, and it's a beautiful process.
Listen, I find, and this is purely anecdotal, I'm not a professional like yourself, just people I talk to, I have found that people generally get stuck in one or more of three ways. And again, this is just my experience. I wonder what your feedback in what is. One is trying to control things you can't control. I just see that. I hear that a lot. Two is the holding off on happiness. I'll be happy when I lose the weight or when I get the raise or if this person treats me this way, holding off on it when you're in complete control of it, of course. And lastly, is kind of living in the past. This happened to me there, therefore I'm this way. There's nothing else I can do about it. Thoughts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's some of the major themes for sure. Control, again, that's a very human thing because we're
Mm,
trying to ensure safety or future or whatever else. But the only thing in our life we have control over is our thoughts, period.
right.
There's nothing else we can control. I can be driving to work tomorrow, having plans with family for the holidays and this and that, and can be killed on the street. And I had that. I've worked with people who had experiences like this, unfortunately, with their loved ones or in different situations. We can't control it. So the idea of safety or trying to control for whatever purpose is an illusion. And if we just take things as they come and say, okay, not being stuck with, again, a lot of things, when we pre plan and something goes sideways, we get so pissed off at it and it's
Mm,
ruined my plans. This is changing your plan for the better. So you just have to adapt and see where that's going to go. Not always is a pleasant thing, but even not getting a job or not getting into a relationship you wanted sometimes is the biggest blessing because we don't see the whole picture. With what was the next one you've mentioned?
living in the past, holding off on happiness.
Oh yeah, but that depends on what happiness means to you because everybody will
Mm,
have a different definition of happiness. And I love how Tony Robbins looked at that when he said happiness is progress. I agree. For me, it goes with that too. If I'm
hmm,
progressing, I don't have anxiety. If I'm doing the things I have to do, I don't have anxiety. I know that I'm exploring, I'm developing, I'm moving forward. So no matter what that is, and it can be, I'm a big supporter of people to find different things they work on, not just one thing that they're doing their job, right, and then watching TV. Get a hobby, learn a new skill, try to learn a new language, whatever that is. Go and explore different places, because it's very important to bring fresh energy. When one of my favorite quotes for Albert Einstein was, "You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. You need to have a new mind." And to have a new mind, the TV we're watching probably not going to be the best. But audiobook can be, motivational speakers would be, going to a seminar will be, learning a new thing will be, because it's going to give you new energy, new insight, new understanding of whatever. And that will expand your mind as well. So I think just progressing always, because happiness, everybody will have it differently. I can say that intrinsically I'm happy no matter what. Why? Because I'm on my mission. I'm moving forward,
Mm.
and I know I'm of service, and I'm present for others, and that's what, I never wanted people to go through what I went through by themselves. Because for the most part, my healing depended on me. Yes, I've had some people who helped for sure, but it was a very, I wouldn't say lonely journey, but isolating. Yeah, it was a lot of, I didn't have support groups that I could really fully engage with and get that kind of sense of belonging. And I really didn't want anybody else to have that. That's why for me, every relationship in therapy, my therapeutic relationships with my clients, is so precious to me. Very. It's very different from, obviously, from friendship or any other people that we have, but it's very deep and very fulfilling in its own way, because we're there doing miracle work for this person, especially when they're open. So happiness, again, it's a relative term. And the past, yes, I mean, the past only exists in our head. It's nowhere to be found right now. And when we begin to understand it in that way, that I have control, and that comes with the first aspect that you mentioned. The only control I have is over my thoughts.
Hmm.
And we know from cognitive triangle that what we think about, that's what we feel. So if I feel bad right now, what am I thinking about? Oh, about abuse, or oh, about how I was mistreated. Of course I'm going to feel bad if I'm bringing that into my presence now here, when it doesn't exist anymore. So for sure, you named them beautifully.
Hmm.
Definitely, those are the big places where people get stuck.
And awareness is the first step, right? Understanding that. So, listen, I started my business back in the 90s. I was working, way too hard starting a business, 14, 16-hour days. I'm sure you're no stranger to this. And not paying attention to my health, working long and eating poorly. Next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I'd gained all this terrible weight. I knew I had gotten big, but I didn't know it was that. And so she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So my daughter was just born. So it scared the life out of me. And I'm driving home and I felt ashamed, right? I'm punching the steering wheel. I did this to myself. This is my own pie hole. The thought of not being there for this beautiful, beautiful girl, Alyssa, that I brought into this world, it split me open. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 120, 130 pounds, and I kept it off. So you can't look at these kinds of things as a finishing line, as many people do, where they can go back to their old habits. The idea is to make lifelong changes. So when I tell people this story, I always get the same question, losing weight, what's your secret? What you do? And there's no secret. Discipline, willpower, routine, focus. How does discipline play a role in your life, Alyssa?
Oh, it's huge. It's everything. By the way, amazing work on your accomplishment, because it's very hard to do. So the fact that you were able to get that, and not blame anybody else for that, because
Mm.
I bet if we look at your history, you can name people or circumstances that made you work 14 hours or 16 hours a
Hmm.
day and not to pay attention to yourself. We can always blame something or someone.
Hmm.
But number one step is removing that blame and taking responsibility. You can be mad at yourself for a little bit of time. That's okay too. That's a part of the self awareness sometimes. You're like, how could I do this to myself?
Mm.
Right. But then you're taking the stance. Discipline is everything. I can't even overemphasize enough, because for me too, having that discipline led me to change. Everything is habitual. When I change my habit, I'm breaking. We create this cognitive dissonance where I begin to challenge myself and doing better and staying consistent. And only discipline will help us get to the new level. There's no other way. In order to drive well right now, as we probably all drive well, it took a lot of repetition to be driving that car every single day, not knowing what to press, feeling anxious about other cars. right? There's so many things that go, it's a process. The same happens for ourselves. Our mind is a muscle too. So we have to really work on this. We have to work on our spirituality. We have to work in the gym. The discipline comes with that too. If I want a result in my body, I'm going to go and I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat healthy, even though I want something that will give me a little bit of that dopamine rush, right? A soda or
Mm.
something else. But it's, and what is important to remember is that not making that as a curse for yourself. Oh my God, I'm going to be missing out. No, you're going to be winning from that. And guess what? After a little bit of time, your body will love the water so much. Instead, let's say if it's a soda, right, or a bottle of water that you will begin to transition to in no time, because you will feel so much better. That's going to be your natural positive reinforcement to keep on going. And in no time, if we don't get stuck in the past saying, oh my God, it was so good, why don't I have it now, right? One of those stuck cycles that you
Mm.
said being in the past. If I'm not there and I pay attention, becoming more aware of how my body feels with the water now, as I'm staying consistent with that for months ahead, how much better do I feel? It's like, wow, I would choose that over anything else. But we need to give ourselves that time when we stay consistent with that new routine. Because again, if I try it once, it's never going to work. It took me
Mm.
6 months to get result out of meditation. 6 months.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, it was my lunch at work. It was an hour lunch, 30 minutes I will eat and watch a show. And then I'm going to go drag myself to meditate. I'm like, okay. And during the day, it's a hard job too, in the office. So, and after that, I was like, oh my God, I really want to finish watching. There's 30 minutes left. I can watch that. No, let's go and do it. And after 6 months of this consistency, finally, when I got in, I was like, oh my God, that's where you go. That's how you
Wow.
experience that. This is so amazing. But if we don't use it, we lose it. So the moment we begin to look in the past, like, well, let me do a little bit of cheating, we're only cheating ourselves. That's it. And if we stay honest with ourselves and we practice that self love, because I think self love is a big component of that too. Because if I truly love myself, if I truly love my child, I'm not going to be giving them soda all the
Mm.
time, right? Or I'm going to try to feed them something more healthier, right? Something that will benefit them, more vegetables, hopefully, whatever that is. But in general, someone we love will recommend different things than what we recommend to ourselves. And becoming honest, saying, okay, maybe I'm not loving myself enough if I'm putting this substance in me, knowing that it's
Mm.
bad for me. Maybe I should work a little bit on that and begin to change my mindset, because anytime we change our thoughts and we think something else instead of the old thought, we create new neural plasticity in our brain. We're changing our brain. And the more we do it, the better it gets, because anything, just like a muscle, requires repetition in order to get stronger and stronger. So discipline, absolutely. If you struggle with that, start slow.
Mm.
Because sometimes people, they haven't worked out and they're like, okay, now I'm going to work out every single day. Well, there can be a problem with that because your body is not used to that right now. And then if you say, okay, I'm going to work 6 days a week, and then you can do that, you will feel very bad about yourself, that you're not, you're incapable, you can do it, it's too hard. But if I say, okay, I'm going to start with twice a week for 30 minutes. And if you do that, you feel a sense of accomplishment. Okay, I've done that. The next week I'm doing two again. And then a couple of weeks, okay, I can do 3 times. Maybe I'll do it for 40 minutes or 45 minutes.
Hmm.
It's much easier to take small steps and practice them consistently for a little bit of time to create new neural plasticity, to feel how you begin to experience. Because after the gym, anybody who says, okay, I don't want to go today to the gym, but then they go, they never say, oh my God, I regretted it that I went. No,
Hmm.
we never regret it. When we're actually going, we come back and say, thank God I went. But before that, it can be a fight with yourself. So we have to, again, that comes with honesty and self-discipline too, to say, okay, I know I don't want to do it, but I can do it anyway, because I cannot afford to not do it. I know where that leads. I've been there before.
Hmm.
So now if I want a different result, I have to do something else, right? We can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. We need to change how we think and motivate ourselves, find a way. Sometimes if we can, that's where I can maybe come to the picture as well, if people are
Hmm.
seeking support with that. And again, yeah, it can be a lot of resistance. But if the person is open, small incremental changes will be so beneficial.
There's a Confucius quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it doesn't matter how slow you go as long as you don't stop.
Ah, absolutely. So powerful.
What motivates you, Alisa?
Depending in what area.
Pick one.
Motivates me. Mm, it's a good question. I think the bigger picture and the service that I'm doing, because that was always important. I want to make sure that people can feel better in my presence, even though it's not always possible. But I want to, if I see that somebody is having that trust with me and is able to understand and comprehend what I'm saying, because again, it's not just my thing. I've learned a lot, I've studied a lot, I've read a lot, I've practiced a lot myself, because everything I say, I've done. Everything I say, I did it myself. The moment I've learned about EMDR, I went for intensive to work on myself because I wanted to see how I'm going to experience this
Hmm.
change, right? So everything that I do or everything that I suggest, I practice what I preach, so to say. And when I see that people are changing from this as well, that something resonates with them, bits and pieces, right? Or they're finding their own way, or they begin to practice their creativity or spirituality, whatever that is. That's the biggest reward for me, the desire to move forward and do more of that and to be available in whatever capacity I can. It's not 100% of the time kind of success, of course not. But even if one person is showing this change that they're going through based on what I've helped them to maybe understand or explore or learn, this is the biggest motivation, at least for my work and my service, because
Hmm.
some days are hard. Again, I have my low days too. And I'm grateful to have the support that I have. And my mom, we're very close. Again, we talk a lot with her. So I think is that the service and seeing the change in others and how capable they can be in that way in my presence, and it's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing. Yeah.
So when I hear that, I hear service and helping others, I think impact. But
Mm-hmm.
you also said big picture. So given the motivation of, I'll just say impact, if that's a correct assumption or not, and big picture, how do you measure success given those motivations?
Success in my work, myself, in what way?
You tell me in both.
um, well, big picture for me, it's the contribution not just to humans but to the consciousness overall, because I think
Mm.
the more people right now, and a lot of people will probably agree, especially those on the spiritual path right now, what we're observing in the world itself is just that separation when people are fighting amongst each other. And I think there was this proverb, Native Americans, I'm going to paraphrase it too, that there's no branches of the tree that are foolish enough to fight amongst one another.
Hmm.
That again, we're just like branches of that tree, and if we like, it's foolish for a tree to fight itself, right? So I think the more people become aware of that we're one and why we're here and how to live according to your own values and principles. Again, people may have it differently, but we know, again, it's not a knowledge. We know when we're doing something right. We know certain things are bad, certain behaviors are not good for us. Let's say stealing, right? Or obviously killing someone, things of that nature, abuse, right? We know. And we feel it inside, but unfortunately, it usually comes from a space of lack of love or self love, right? If somebody can inflict harm on another, that means you're hurting inside, because only hurt people hurt people.
Hmm.
And so I think becoming more aware of how we can work on ourselves and become more attuned to the nature of everything being one. That's a very tricky concept, because again, we're so different, everybody. We have different points of view. And still, I think the greatest form of self-control is to be able to agree to disagree and do it in a respectful way without taking things personally. It's okay. And even some people will have opinion about me. They may think I'm not a good person or whatever. You know, whatever they can call me, and it's true for them. But it doesn't define who I am,
Right.
right? And if I'm trying to convince them otherwise, they're entitled to their opinion, and that's okay. But the more I think, the more we become aware of how connected we all can be. I think that's the bigger picture, is through this spiritual war that we have going on right now, what's right, what's wrong. I think finding your own path that will resonate and that will make you feel empowered, inspired. I really love this I guess aspect. Wayne Dyer was talking about it, being inspired in spirit, inspiration, right, in a space of creation. That's what spirit is. It's creation. We're all created from the spirit. or information, in a form.
Hmm.
Well, so we can have a lot of information from everywhere around that may be actually contaminating our mind with all of this. Who's right, who's wrong, finding faults, you know, judging others, whatever the case. If I may have certain views that I don't understand in certain aspects, I'm not going to go in detail, but I'm keeping an open mind. If you will be able to explain to me why you see it in that way, I'm here to listen. Explain to
Hmm.
me, because until I get an explanation, it's hard for me to understand what it is. Right. And so I think the more open we are to listen, to see, okay, what's your point of view on that? Rather than trying to fight over what I believe is right, let's try to explore. Well, tell me, what do you think about it? Oh, okay, maybe there's points that I didn't consider, I didn't know, right? But it takes a lot of emotional intelligence. It takes a lot of open mind as well to be able to accept someone else's reality in their own way and see it. And it's a beautiful thing. But if we're open to that, and what I love about my work as well, I can live 1,000 lives being in one room, because if I'm open enough, I can experience everything. Are we able to watch a movie and we cry with them, we laugh with them, we get scared from the scary movies? Because our brain does not distinguish reality from non-reality.
Hmm.
We're so involved in the movie because we're living it. So when I'm with my clients, I'm living their life. Is it a lot? Sometimes, of course. But at the same time, I can learn without actually going through the experience. I can learn from them, and I can live their life vicariously through them, and learning about their insights, their experiences, feeling what they're feeling to a certain degree. We can never fully understand, but we can try to be open to that experience as well. And I think it's very beautiful. And if we just learn from one another rather than bash one another, at the first point that we disagree on, I think it can create a much more peaceful society and more understanding. And just like it was, in Native Americans or in South America, still people are more down to earth, connected with nature. We're losing the old ways because of the technology.
Hmm.
And again, it can be very useful, but humans abuse everything. We abuse it all. There used to be, peace pipe when people sat around and shared and connected with the spirit. Now we see people hanging from the windows in the car, smoking cigarettes, right? Alcohol, sex, food, all of we abuse it all. And technology too. Is it great? Of course, I can connect with my mom on the other continent. That
Hmm.
was not a thing in back in the day. Even when I moved here, it was 2008. I had to get a card and put the number. There was no FaceTime. None of that existed,
Right. Right.
right? And so there's a lot of perks, but we get lost in it and we begin to replace something more natural, contemplating sunrise or sunset, being in nature, walking barefoot, which is absolutely phenomenal for our health. So
Sure is.
yeah, we just have to. I think it's good in the balance, everything. And if we learn that, and first it starts with us as well, and learning about ourselves, and then saying, oh, you know what? I think I'm using this, my phone way too much at night, and I should be sleeping now, really. And I'm still stuck. So maybe it's something that I have troubles controlling, admitting to yourself, you know what? I think I'm getting addicted to that little device.
Hmm.
So let me do something about it, right? Again, that awareness. But we need to know ourselves and to be honest about what we think we may need to change.
Alyssa, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you. You know, the trait of a remarkable person is to, you know, live with their trauma, of course, but the remarkable person tries to help others with what they've gone through and what they've learned. And I applaud you for that. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Anybody watching or listening, where can they get in touch with you? How?
Yeah, so anybody who, if they want a free consultation, I'll gladly provide that. I have my Instagram, Alisa_art, my Psychology Today. You can find me by Alisa Gracheva. I actually just, one good news this year is I published my first book. So my first book is on Amazon. It's called Walking with Spirit, and it's a kind of a combination. It's been written over many many years because I've done a lot of blog posts and things of that nature, a lot of things I work through, what I've learned from others. So that's now on Amazon. I'm very excited about that. So
Congratulations.
yes, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, Lisa Gracheva, I'm all over the internet. If you just put my name in there, you should get different resources, and I would gladly talk to anybody who is interested and provide them with some insights that I have.
We'll make sure to put it up. Again, I thank you so much for your time. Next time I'm in the general southeast area of Florida, perhaps we'll get together and have a cup of tea.
Yes, please. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your energy and for having me.
I'll talk to you soon. You be well. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.